Hi, everybody. My name is Lydia Middleton. I am the Executive Director of ASIST, and I am here today with Chris Cunningham, who is our candidate for Treasurer for the ASIST Board of Directors 2025 to 2028. Welcome, Chris.
Hello.
Hello. Let me give you a moment to introduce yourself. I think, you've been on the ASIS board for a while, so I think people may know you, but let's give those that don't a chance to get to know you. So let us know who you are, where you are, and a bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Chris Cunningham. I am a assistant professor at North Carolina Central University here in Durham, North Carolina. I am also the program director for the Master of Library Science here at NCCU. Big picture, I actually started in the business world. I worked my way up to chief information officer at a couple of different corporations, which, funny enough, was the jack of all trade. The first company I worked with was actually a kind of a smaller company, and really the CIO position was freeing up the owner of the various locations so that he could do other things. And so that was you were very generalist in terms of what did you need to do. You needed to do a little bit of everything. Uh, After a number of years, transitioned over into the nonprofit world, worked at a number of universities, decided that the information world seemed to be the place to go because that was really kind of what I had been doing. Big picture. I'd worked in tech for several years as well as being CIO. And so it seemed to be a very good blend in terms of what I was already doing. And that really seemed to be the future of the direction that I wanted to be a part of. And so transitioned over, ended up getting my doctorate and then transitioning over into the faculty world. Funny enough, as part of that, my dissertation actually won the ProQuest Dissertation Award here at ASIS. I want to say that was 2015. It has been a little longer than I care to admit.
Well, not that long ago, not too long ago. A little before my time, but not too long. Okay, well, so you've obviously been a member of ASIS for a while. Why did you choose ASIS as your professional home, and what keeps you renewing every year?
So for me, as I said, I was a big tech guy, and so this really seemed like a good home in terms of how we were putting things together. We have practitioners, and so looking to see, okay, well, what are people doing today, right now, in terms of addressing these issues and having access to them, right? Going to the annual meetings, going to these webinars, and walking up and making introductions and shaking hands and saying, "Hey, I saw that you were working on this. That's great." But also, we have a number of faculty and researchers in ASIS, and so to kind of see the direction that they're going in terms of the research and so in terms of kind of blending some of these theoretical ideas into more practical applications and really having the ability to talk to a lot of the pioneers of the information world for the LIS field. So, being able to go and talk with Michael Buckland and Brenda Durbin and, really being able to have the opportunity to have real FaceTime with them, having real conversations with them. It's one of the things I enjoy about the ACES conference is it's big, but it's not huge. And so you have the ability to introduce yourself to these people and get to know them and then see them again next year. And the reality is it's a small enough group where we do get to know each other and recognize each other and uh really be able to lean into that. And so it's not just you're there with your cadre and that's this little clique and that's it. And having these opportunities not only to interact with, whenever I started, ASIS was very U.S. based, very North American centric. And here over the past few years to see that grow in terms of the international exposure. I've worked with SIG Triple I for several years and getting to know that and seeing for instance, the executive board and how that's really transitioned away from being very, very US focused to having, a little bit of everybody and having those conversations and having those perspectives. And to me, that helps me grow, both professionally and personally.
Yeah, yeah. Well, great. Thank you very much. So you're going to be the treasurer if you are successful in this election. So what particular skills, particularly as it relates to being the treasurer, but also in general, would you bring to your role on the board?
So as I said, I worked as a CIO for several companies, and so I am not an accountant, but I worked with the accountants, and so I've got a little bit of background. I've got exposure in terms of GAAP, general accepted accounting principles. I can look at a P&L, I can look at things on those lines, balance sheets, and so forth, and really being able to recognize that. I've had the privilege of filling in for Ina as she stepped out as the treasurer, and so I've been able to see the past 2 years worth of expenditures and revenue and so forth for ASIS, and have an understanding of that, and being able to have an intelligent conversation with the accountants and what that looks like, and being able to look and see, okay, are there things here that seem maybe out of the ordinary, and having those conversations, as well as looking at things like forecasting of like, well, what does our next year's budget look like? Are there any outliers here in this balance sheet, in this profit and loss chart, to be able to look for things along those lines. And I've taken a couple of formal accounting courses. I've took a number of economics courses, and so, being able to put all those pieces together in an applied way, to really be able to assist you and assist the executive committee in terms of, the big picture. This is what the budget looks like, and then are these realistic numbers, and is there anything out of the ordinary, and if so, why, and what we should expect here over the next year, 3 years, 5 years.
Great, great. Thanks. So as you know, you've been a part of the development of this. We will be developing, or we will be launching a new strategic plan in the coming year, starting actually at the annual meeting in November. And you were part of the discussions in developing it. You have reviewed it. So, what aspects of the new plan do you think are of the highest priority to you, and where do you see yourself really contributing to that?
So I cheated and I just pulled it up. So I mean there's lots of places here where I'm certainly interested in jumping in. So for instance, goal three, expand the ASIS education and professional development offerings. To me that's important because a lot of the ASIS is bringing added value. It's while there are certainly networking opportunities, but also, right, what does that look like? And what does that look like not only for us as faculty, but also what does that look like in terms of practitioners? What does that look like for students? And while we have a number of doc students, but also what does that look like for the master students that are coming in and getting these very applied degrees, and being able to be able to lean into that, looking at goal four, looking at developing and enhancing new pedagogical resources for members, and putting those pieces together, putting pieces together once again for professional development opportunities. I think that is phenomenal. We have a huge amount of experience that our members bring to the table, and bringing that into areas that both our professional members, but as well as our faculty can use and our students can use. And I just got out of a meeting with Crystal Fulton, and putting those pieces together in terms of like, well, what is it that y'all are doing, for instance, in Ireland as opposed to what we're doing in the U.S., and how do we connect that,
Mhm.
and realizing that there were a lot of assumptions, even with as much exposure as I had internationally. There were still huge assumptions that I had been making, and having this very detailed conversation with Crystal, realizing, whoa, not only was I wrong, I was really wrong, and looking at all the things that I could really learn from them, and then bringing that into the classroom, bringing that into my information center, and really being able to use that.
Outstanding. We're excited about what's going to happen in the next 3 years. Um, I asked Isto about this. I'm going to ask you too. Just a word about merger with SLA, potential merger with SLA. Any thoughts there about sort of the practitioner academic interface and what that might look like?
Sure. So first, I'm heartbroken that SLA is closing its doors, having been a former member. But I am very excited that space is coming to us, because I think they would leave a vacuum there, and I really think that ASIS is in a really good position to bring them in and merge with them and offer them resources because there are a lot of things that SLA did well that we can certainly learn from. There are a lot of things that we do really well that I think long term is really going to help the SLA community. I'm excited about bringing in more practitioners. I always love to see practitioners being faculty. Unfortunately, a lot of times we are a little more removed from that practical application. And so having those conversations with practitioners, going to these meetings and these webinars that are being led by practitioners, so that we can lean into the experience and see, okay, well, what I'm bringing to the classroom, is that really applicable today? Because, unfortunately, once again, we're often removed from that. I am very excited for both groups. I've been working a little bit with the, kind of unofficially with the Carolinas chapter of SLA. They had some really phenomenal things that they were building up more momentum to, and so I look forward to being able to take advantage of that, lean into that, and continue to help them with that momentum. I think it's a great opportunity.
Fantastic. Okay, is there anything I haven't asked you that, any unanswered questions that you'd like to answer or anything more you want the membership to know about you?
So big picture, I have been around ASIS for a while, and so I do understand a lot of the workings of ASIS. I've been a chair and co-chair for one of the SIG Ed. Many years ago, I worked with SIG DL as the digital liaisons. I worked as parliamentarian, and so for me, this is really more about how can I serve. I, as I said, I got my degree from South Carolina with when Sam Hastings was there as chair, and one of the things that she always talked about at the master's level, at the PhD level, right? Look for ways of like how can we serve our community both personally and professionally. And so to me, many years ago, that this was how I kind of got into the executive board because I saw the call. There didn't seem to be a lot of response, and so somebody needed to step up. And I'm not saying I was the best candidate for it, but there was a need there, and I certainly recognize that. And so I want to continue to both, share my experience and my knowledge with the folks at ASIS and the executive board, but also once again what I can learn from all these people. I mean, once again, we have a unbelievably diverse executive board, and it is always fascinating to sit down with them and learn from them. And so I hope that goes both ways, and so that's kind of what I try to bring to the table, so to speak, in terms of ACES.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes with us today, and I wish you the best of luck in the election.
Thank you, thank you.
Thanks.